The great thing about Haliburton, his play so far, is just the way he dissects the game. He's so fun to watch because he kind of moves and thinks one step ahead of the defense, just between his passing and the way he attacks the rim. Ethan, I looked at your article here recently. You wrote about Haliburton just being an offensive engine for this team. And there are a few numbers that you highlighted that I wanted to kind of put out in the open for our listeners. The first of which is the fact that he's averaging 97 touches per game through 21 games. I think that's very significant because we always talk about usage rate. We talk about shots per game. We talk about all of that. But touches per game seems to encompass everything into one number, whether or not he's shooting the ball or passing the ball. That means he's involved in some capacity in the offense, and everything goes through him. And he's handling that responsibility very well. And you compared his numbers to Nikola Jokic, who in recent seasons has been one of the premier offensive players, offensive engines for his team. And you mentioned that his Haliburton's mark is the fourth highest non-Jokic touch mark recorded in about 10 years while we've had this tracking data, which is really incredible. And then the second of which, the number you highlighted, was 11.7. That's the number of his high value assists per 75 possessions. So that tracks the rate of creation for 3-point assist, rim assist, and free throw assist. And as we know in today's NBA, those three areas of the floor are where you get your most efficient shots. So that's very significant. So he leads by a significant margin of 4.76 three-point assists per game, which is pretty incredible. So just wanted to put that on the table for our listeners, just to kind of put into perspective what Haliburton is doing. But Ethan, I want to hand this over to you because, these numbers are coming from your article and you've dove into his play quite a bit recently here. So when it comes to Haliburton, what exactly is he doing here that is driving this team's success? And what else have you noticed from his games here so far this season that's really impressed you?
Yeah. Well, first off, Aaron, thanks for the kind of intro to the article. You hit a lot of the numbers that I think are most important when talking about Haliburton. Touches per game, again, isn't the perfect example of usage. Obviously, you have usage rate, you have what you're asked to do with your touches, like drives per game and all these things. But when you just think about how many times you're asked to make a decision on a basketball court, touches per game is kind of a good way to encompass that. And it is pretty crazy. I wrote an article last year about how unique Nikola Jokic is and how that is reflected in a lot of ways in the touches that he gets. And so to now see Haliburton pass him on this leaderboard and just to see Haliburton at the top in his own right is pretty unbelievable for a third year, 22-year-old guard. I think a lot of people, myself included, kind of expected him to take on this role with the Pacers this season, but not for it to go nearly as well right away. It was supposed to be more of a learning process than it's been, and Haliburton has just jumped right in and done so many things extremely well. You mentioned the high value assists. A lot of that is helped by the players around him. Buddy Hield, even though he hasn't shot the ball particularly well from long range by his standards, he is still a perimeter player that Haliburton's going to have with. He's also been driving the ball pretty well, attacking off the second side. You got Miles Turner as an interior presence. Jalen Smith, I think it was someone I highlighted in this article, specifically interesting. I think he was the seventh most Haliburton assisting to Jalen Smith with the second most frequent assist combo in the NBA so far, which kind of surprised me. And a lot of that is Smith hitting these kind of trailer threes that the defense isn't really respecting yet, or you kind of have him as an interior finishing threat a little bit too. So it's just really cool to see Haliburton have this kind of synergy with so many different play types on his team, and for him to hit them in high value positions, like you said. It's just really amazing. And a lot of what helps with that, as I kind of wrote as the part two of this article, was he is so much more dynamic as a driving scorer now that defenses have to respect that. And that in turn opens up so many more passing lanes. Haliburton is such a high IQ passer. It was a 3-game stretch over the last week where he had 40 assists, no turnovers. No NBA player has done that since individual turnovers had been tracked. That's just one example of the decision-making that he's able to make. And so him growing as a rim threat, interior driving scorer just makes it so much easier for him to hit other players. And even though there are still ups and downs, like his last 2 games haven't been the most efficient shooting games ever, it's really, really cool to see just all of these aspects of playmaking come together so quickly. And again, he's 22 years old and essentially almost joining a new team in a new role situation where he finally had an off season with the Pacers to kind of set up for what he's expected to do. And he's thriving so far. It's really been amazing to see.